to come together. Mills is through the air. There's contact in the battle for the lead at Indianapolis. McKenzie Jones.
Hello, good evening, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the 5-year anniversary special round of the Alpha Touring Challenge Season 16, as proudly brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC, known as iRacing, and powered by both Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design. That's right, 5 years ago, on the 1st of February 2021, the first ever official race of the Alpha Touring Challenge got underway, and we have come 5 years down the road to celebrate what is an absolutely special birthday for the series. And we're here today at the revival place of road racing in the US of A after the Second World War, the Mecca of American motorsport. It is none other than the Watkins Glen International Circuit. And as our drivers get ready to take on this circuit, well, indeed, emotions will be high, and it's a circuit that is definitely going to see our drivers try to end the racing on a high, given the fact that we do have a fast-flying cup course here, only 2.45 miles in length, but the theme of Watkins Glen has always remained the same, regardless of what layout is run, and that is it's all about the need for speed, with its fast-flying corners, its extended straights, and its infamous bus-stop chicane. And for our drivers today, they'll know there's not just points on the line, but also there's pride at being entered into the history books as the driver who perhaps wins in their class, and therefore becomes the winner in the 5-year anniversary special event. But where are my manners? Allow me to welcome you all to this post-round broadcast from Circuit Side as you tune in tonight on Paul Walsh Productions, the YouTube channel bringing you all this racing action throughout the entirety of the season. Go to youtube.com and search for Paul Walsh Productions or PWP, and you can be catching all the action from the season 16 of the Alpha Touring Challenge on a weekly basis. Now, we should do a bit of housekeeping and say that this is a post-round broadcast of the racing you're seeing actually occurred as of yesterday on what was Monday the 2nd of February 2026, but we're bringing it to you as if it were live today on none other than Tuesday the 3rd of February, and therefore we do not know what happens in the practice session that's currently going on, or very shortly the race session that's due to get underway. And while this being a special round, well, we do have a very special schedule lined up, and we can see that with our timings, because in Eastern Standard Time, that's EST, or Universal Coordinate Time -5, in what will be approximately none other than about 14 minutes time, we're making our way to our grid for our one and only 45-minute endurance race today, due to get underway at sometime just after 9:15 this evening. But many of you will be asking, well, how exactly we're going to set the grid, what's in store for tonight to commemorate the occasion? Well, all that and more we're going to find out, and all of your racing actions brought to you by none of myself in the content booth. My name is Paul Walsh, and I'll be covering all your racing action as it unfolds. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's get right into it, because we've got an incredible round ahead. I've got a gut instinct that says it's going to be a memorable one for all the right reasons. So without further ado, firstly, let's give you a recap of what's played out over the opening 4 rounds, particularly what happened last time at the Circuit of the Americas. And as we can see, taking a look back to our schedule, well, on the 26th of January, we were in Texas, the Lone Star State, and it was another sprint race round, 2 25-minute races, and what were the headline acts from it? Well, firstly, overall, the spoils were split between 2 drivers. Your winner in race number 1, Michael Polasek, who after his disastrous meeting at the Okayama International Circuit, we didn't even complete a lap before his car gave up on him, where he was back in form last time out at the Circuit of the Americas and took the victory in race number 1 and finished second overall in race number 2. Just missing out to Wojciech Swierdajczyk, who many would say was very unfortunate in Texas, given the fact it all went wrong for him in race number 1, and therefore he inherited what was the second place spot on the starting grid for race number 2 after his recovery to 12th place in race number 1, and therefore he was given a golden opportunity at some form of redemption. So Polasek in the end had to settle for second, but he did take home the lion's share of the points. Meanwhile, in the Gamma class, well, it was definitely a very impressive day for what was the Beaver and D's pair of John Lauzon and Raymond Tew. Lauzon looking very good in race number 1 and taking home the class victory, and also a very impressive lap for second place overall in qualifying. Meanwhile, in the second race, it was Raymond Tew in the end who steered clear of all the drama that occurred on the opening laps, and in the end made sure that after battling hard with many of his peers in the Gamma and also the Alpha classes, he was able to come on home with the win, although James Carr decided not to put up too much of a fight, and we get the feeling that James Carr's prioritising points, whereas meanwhile Tew was prioritising wins. And in the Delta class, well, it's all been shaken and stirred up, because unfortunately your championship leader of none other, and then what was at the time, and he still is your championship leader, we should say, Tyler Long, where it was a disastrous day in the office, and in his absence at the front of the field, well, we got to see in race number 1, Kyle Flannery take a brilliant win, and meanwhile taking his first win in race number 2, Zach Hidako, who held on in the end, despite Evan Clavio absolutely ripping and tearing through the gap he'd set up early on in the race. But now it is time for round number 5. We are here for our special event round in the state of New York, and the Watkins Glen International Circuit will play host, after which we will be making our way northwards once again to Canada, and it will be to the Ontario State that will be racing at the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park in only a week's time in another pair of sprint races. But as we talk about our host venue, well, what exactly are we racing at today? We are racing at the Cup layout of the Watkins Glen International Circuit. 2.45 miles in length or 3.94 kilometres, depending on your preference of units, but what stays exactly the same is the fact that this is a circuit consisting of 7 corners. Many of these corners are very familiar to all our drivers, indeed you guys and girls tuning in at home. As we see our drivers all the way around here today, well, there's plenty of opportunities to go battling, but particularly into turn number 1 at 90 right as it's known, the banked right-hander that opens up the lap, and of course the run all the way through the S's up towards the bus stop chicane or the inner loop section. What is not a corner number there, it has no number, but it is a bus stop. As the drivers make the way out today, it'll then be onto the outer loop, the long right-hander that brings them back on themselves and coming on down in towards the medium speed apex to turn 6 and 7. They'll complete the lap and do it all over again. However, with this circuit being so fast lane, there are plenty of places where we've seen past instants, particularly in the run through the S's at turns 2, 3 and 4, where we'll see our drivers reaching speeds in excess of 140 miles an hour, and it's there. A small touch between 2 cars can end up in the barriers very quickly. Alternatively, we may even see some instants into the bus stop chicane itself, or alternatively coming out of the outer loop. And as for the early traffic jams we can expect, well, the concertina effect is going to be massively felt in towards turn number 1, and it will also be felt quite significantly in towards the bus stop chicane, albeit very quickly we will see the field gradually open up, and as it does so, well, we'll see more isolated battles, but some brilliant battles at that. Now, in terms of this event, we have a practice session which is gradually coming to a close, and then we will have a 45-minute race with a mandatory tyre change. So a very similar style race in a way to all of our endurance race rounds, much like Okayama, albeit we're not expecting any rain here today, unlike in round number 3. So how exactly are we setting that grid? Now, we're going to come clean and say there was originally a plan to have a qualifying race before the main event, a non-points paying race whereby it's 10 minutes and the grid would all line up in a specified order. That order we have retained for the purposes of gridding tonight for our actual race, but the qualifying race would set the grid for the purposes of our endurance race. Unfortunately, there was a technical issue, and therefore we've had to go to plan B, which is we had to scrap the qualifying race, which is unfortunate, but therefore it has no impact on proceedings, and it means we just go straight into the main race and we take forward how we plan to set the grid for the qualifying race. We take that procedure straight into our race, and indeed our 45-minute race then is going to be a spectacular one. Now, in terms of our circuit ratings, this circuit is very light on tyre stress, so therefore we can expect our drivers to feel very comfortable on their tyres all the way over the race distance. Although there is the high load corner at turn number 5, so they will need to be careful there. If they put too much pressure on that front left tyre, they may find it screaming towards the end, but that's why we have the one mandatory tyre change, and I suspect most drivers will be changing at least that one tyre, if not both front tyres. Heavy braking wise, well, there's not too many heavy braking zones. Turn 1 really being the main braking zone around here, and you could say to some extent turn number 7 as well, because it's a very tight corner compared to what it looks like on a circuit diagram. can. Also, overtaking difficulty, it's quite low around here. There is plenty of opportunity to try and make it overtake, whether it be in the long straights or into the braking zones or through the sweeping bends, you name it, you can overtake it here at Watkins Glen. And as for off tracks, well, they are a little bit easier to pick up, particularly coming out to turn number 1, where you must keep 2 wheels on the exit curb, and also the run out of outer loop and in towards the final couple of quarters. And at turn number 7, there's going to be a very rough concrete barrier sitting on the outside if you happen to go a little bit too wide. And as for pit entry, it's one of the hardest arguably on our calendar because of the fact it is parallel to the entry in towards turn number 7, but you must stay within the white lines. Go beyond them, and what you'll find is you very quickly pick up a black flag, and suddenly your pit stop is converted into a stop and go. As for the pit exit, it's as easy as they can be because you flow straight out the pit lane, parallel to the apex to turn number 1, and you re-emerge on the inside of the run in towards the S's. And a huge thank you to the AlphaTauri Change Administration, as always, for putting together these absolutely brilliant graphics that enable us to break down the circuits week in, week out. So how exactly are we going to set the grid then for our race? Well, let's give you a recap of the rules then. And as we can see, this is an open setup series. It always has been and will continue to be. And therefore, our drivers bring a setup of their choosing to each and every race session. But as there is no qualifying session, we will be setting the grid for the endurance race based on an inverted championship standings position order of the driver classes, and they will be grouped as follows. Group 1 will be your Alpha and Gamma drivers together. Meanwhile, Group 2 will then be all the Delta drivers. Let's put it simply for you. What does that actually mean? We take the overall drivers championship standings, which we will show you very shortly, and what we do with those is essentially we take the Alpha and Gamma drivers, we turn them upside down in their current order, and whoever's the lowest placed driver out of that combination as they stand will start on pole, and we work our way downwards to the championship leader, which of course will be none other than Michael Polasek. Then we take Group 2, the Deltas, based on their Delta class championship, and we take their order and we turn them upside down, and therefore it does mean that the lowest points driver will be starting at the very front of that group, and me at the very back will be Tyler Long. Now we do have some exceptions. We have some newcomers on the grid today, and also drivers who have not competed in more than 2 rounds, and therefore do not have enough points so far this season to be eligible to be in this order. But in terms of our newcomers, let's give a quick introduction to them. You will be seeing Zach Saunders, who's new to the grid, joining in the Delta class from Japan, the privateer, and we'll also see new to the grid Thomas Fancock, who will be joining in the Delta class from the United States of America, and we also see the return of Kevin Johnson to the grid in the Delta class, the American driver. He will be in his privateer machine as well, and we look forward to seeing all of them out there. Now, when we do go racing, it shall commence by a standing start, as is a tradition of the AlphaTauri Challenge series, and drivers must change at least one tyre during the race, as we mentioned earlier. Each driver has one fast pair available should they need to use it, and they shall receive a drive-through penalty if they accumulate 15 or more instant points. Double that to 30, and they will be disqualified. Meanwhile, all race journeys shall be conducted post-race. But as we do make our way back to circuit side, ladies and gentlemen, well, we do take a look to our lovely trackside pictures, and as we do, let's take a look at those standings then coming into this round. And we begin with the overall drivers' top 20. And what we can see here is Michael Polasek leads, and now with 2 drop scores being applied coming into today. Well, how exactly does that shake things up, I hear many of you ask? Well, what it does to affect it means that right now, many of the points you see here will not have changed come what was the exit of the COTA circuit, because a few drivers not improving. So Polasek holds a lead. It's only 14 points, but the yellow flag motorsport driver knows that with the difficulties of Okayama and also earlier in the season, he's now got to go for gold. He cannot afford to really drop any more points. Croc Promotions' Micah Hendricks moves into second place, and he's only the best part there of none other than 15 points ahead of Logan McKenzie for Pennzoil Super Touring, who is definitely now starting to hit his stride and really putting together some very consistent finishing positions. Raymond Hughes sits in 4th, your leading Gamma driver at the moment. And understanding the Beaver and D's driver right now looking very impressive in these overall standings. Head of Dan McFarlane, who's only 7 points behind, and it's a further point to Matt Shepka. The Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport driver continuing to put together some very good results and also picking up some major overall points. Wojciech Swerdijk sits in 7th meanwhile for breakfast for dinner after what was a difficult previous couple of rounds, but he has found his form once again, and also the bad luck seems to have gone away from him, particularly the bad luck we saw that struck him back at what was the Charlotte Roval in round number 2. And then we do have John Lowes on there, the Beaver and D's driver, and well, perhaps in these overall standings, they don't quite show you where he should be in the order, but when we come to the Gamma standings, you'll see a very different picture. But he's on 314 points, the best part there of 19 ahead. Well, in fact, I'll do 21 ahead there when I can do the mental mathematics, ahead of both Cooper Akers and Francois Schink, with Akers ahead of the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport driver based on result countback. But behind the pair there, we do then have John Daniels, best dressed in 11th place at T0 Racing Summit, and then Agustin Fernandez, the Argentine driver, who's not had any luck in the last couple of rounds due to technical issues. Unfortunately, he's been blighted, and if it hasn't been that, It's been also instant, but we do see him sat there in none other than 12th place ahead of your Delta leader overall of Tyler Long and the T0 Racing Ascent driver. It all went so horribly wrong last time out, and it means that he's not made any progress. In fact, he's regressed some extent as he now falls to 13th place. James Cart moving up the order. He's in 14th for breakfast for dinner ahead of Mike D'Almeida by 3 points. It's then a further 11 points there to Connor Achetella and the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver behind his teammate. And then we do have Chris McDonald, Major Monsivai, Matthew Melior, and Zachary Bowman completing that overall Drivers' Championship top 20 of what is the Alpha Championship. But now coming down into the specifics of what is your Gammas. And as we look to the Gamma Drivers' Championship, here we can see Raymond Tiu leading by 11 points. And well, how things are coming on so strong for him, because he's laying the foundations for a very good championship campaign and another pair of podiums, including a win at COTA. It does mean as though he's starting to look very comfortable, but we will see how the drop scores gradually play this out. And Dan McFarlane, meanwhile, well, it was all looking good. Qualifying and race number 1, he seems to be a bit of pressure on him with regards to trying to maintain his pace, and race 1 really exposed that as he gradually fell a little bit backwards compared to leaders in the Gamma class. Race number 2, meanwhile, it all went so very wrong to the point he's now actually committed 2 drop scores already for this season. He can't afford another non-points paying round at this point, or a low paying one at that. And indeed, if you look behind John Malzon, the Beaver and D's driver, as we said when we looked at the overall championship, the fact that he is the one who right now is on a mission to move forward on 326 points, and understandably the Canadian driver right now moving closer, and he had some of his best results last time out with the win plus the pole position in race 1, and then we did see what's that 4th place drive in race number 2, and therefore he could be coming on through. Behind him, by the best part of what is 41 points, is Pennzoil Super Touring's Cooper Akers, who's also going from strength to strength, and we look forward to seeing what the number 29 driver can do today ahead of John Daniels at T0 Racing Summit, only 2 points separating those two. And then we do have James Carr in 6th place there for breakfast for dinner ahead of Mike D'Almeida with the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver at 11 points clear of his teammate of Connor Achetella. Major Monsivai and Matt Shepka complete that top 10 there. And well, it's interesting to see the differences, of course, between Monsivai and Shepka in terms of where they are in the overall standings versus where they are in the Gamma class championship standings, particularly Shepka, who has had some big points, but of course points have swing back and forth depending on where he's finished in the class as well as where he's finished overall over the season. But as we do then see Zachary Bowman in 11th place there for Pennzoil Super Touring, 4 points further adrift. He's 4 points ahead of Zachary Leopold as we have the battle of the two Zacks, and the Formula Llama driver then being followed up by Damon Mitchell and Nicholas Sudik, who picked up his first 3 points last time out, but he needs to get a move on with those points if he wants to get into that top 10. Then coming to the Delta Class Drivers' Championship. And here we can see in the Deltas, it is Tyler Long who leads a T0 Racing Ascent on 295 points ahead of the 234 for Chris McDonald. However, his lead, Long's lead that is, has been slashed massively as a result of what happened last time out at COTA, whereby it didn't look good at all in race 1, with a 10th place finish, and in race number 2, a 16th place finish, it's all been completely turned upside down. After he started 3rd on the Delta grid, you would have thought it was going to be another strong showing. Chris McDonald, meanwhile, well, you could say the same for him as well, in the fact he started 5th, but come the end of race number 1, he finished 24th, and in race number 2, he recovered for 15th. He salvaged some points out of the day, but the driver, meanwhile, who gained all the big score of what was Texas, was Evan Clavio for Sim Racing Grid, still waiting for a first Delta class win. He almost managed to take it off of Zach Hidalgo towards the end of the second race, but second place it was in race number 2, following up a 3rd place in race number 1, and Clavio right now is the man to watch, as is Jared Kalnins. Now, of course, many will remember Kalnins at Okayama. It all looked as though it was going so well for him in the wet conditions until the pace slipped away for him, but the privateer right now showed the pace didn't slip away last time out and put together a good pair of races. He's ahead of Zach Hidalgo, who has leapt into 5th place with that maiden win, and what a maiden win it was, no doubt about it, and the privateer ahead of T0 Racing Ascent's Cole Trost. Fuad Al-Riji sits in 7th place there for CG, and right now continuing to contest the mid-pack of the top 10 of the Delta class, albeit not quite able to recapture the magic we saw at Okayama in that qualifying session, but never say never to be fair to him. And then we do have Kyle Flannery for Gasparilla Motorsport ahead of JB Dejoux, with Ronald Meffo rounding off that top 10. Outside the top 10, by only the best part there of 3 points, is Adrian Fedorowski. The 2-on-2 Racing is gradually going forward over the course of the season, with the Polish driver then being followed up by Gator Racing's Jason Lynn. And then we do have Carl Murray for CG, the Scottish driver there for 3 points behind. He's comfortably the best part there of 18 points ahead of Gareth McAllister, with the Monster Energy Racing driver, meanwhile, definitely starting to build some momentum ahead of Corey Lobner. And it's Joseph Heath, Austin Dunbar, Lewis Gilbert, Mitchell Richmeyer, and Sean Gerd who complete that Delta top 20. Outside our top 20, because there are plenty of Delta drivers, let's continue to talk about them. We do have Spencer Clark, who's on 70 points there for Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, head of Marcel Thomas, who's on 65, and Jonathan Bradford there, a further 5 adrift. But the theme of 5 separating drivers breaks up there because it's then 7 points to Jeremy Barber. And the Monster Energy racing driver right now, not quite having the luck he's wanted so far this season. Indeed, he's been in some great battles towards the bottom end of the top 20 of the Delta class, but I do expect he's hoping for a top 10 at some point. Andy Koslik as well, didn't quite work out in his lovely light blue Hyundai Elantra last time out, and therefore the privateer right now still wondering when's his big score going to arrive, because he's only ahead of Mark Darnell based on result countback. And then we do have Jason Breen for Sim Racing Grid, a further 11 adrift, but 2 ahead of Nick Bader, with Kurt Smith and Jalen Kuo completing that top 30. And the Mid-Pack Mafia driver, unfortunately last time out at COTA, well, definitely found himself in the heart of a couple of the big incidents, particularly was the major shunt on race number 2. Jess Rakowski sits in 31st, the T0 Racing Ascent driver, ahead of Ryan Small by 4 points. There's a further 4 to both Noah Nemayak and also Roger Shank, with Logan Watern making his debut last time out and doing very well from the back of the field to pick up some gradual points. Those 5 points coming in handy in his early career. And then we do have on 0 points still Aaron Law, Angel Resendez, Angel Bonilla Soto, Cameron DeMunk, Marco Mangano, and I do believe, ladies and gentlemen, we also do have there on 0 points Nola Pizzola, Patrick Rich, and Tim Driscoll. Then coming on to the teams championship standings, and here we look at the overall teams, and as we can see, Pennzoil Super Touring, they are holding on to that lead. However, Beaver and D's are closing the gap. The Gamma team in second place, they are punching well above their weight, and right now in a ring full of heavyweights, they may be the lightweight who are absolutely moving forward here and showing that sometimes being the less rated drivers on the grid is not necessarily a detriment, but also an ability to give them motivation to move forward. Yellow Flag Motorsport, they sit in third at the moment. 9, they still need to build up the momentum after the difficulties of Polasek in round number 3. Well, he's definitely got some points back on the board for them, and the Gamma drivers as well are now starting to pick up the pace. Croc Promotions, well, in fourth place there on 812 points, and Micah Hendricks definitely bringing home the lion's share of the points last time out at COTA and hoping to do so again today. Head of Sim Racing Grid, who are on 746, and then we do see what is a conversion of the gaps there for 6th all the way through to 9th, whereby we have Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, Breakfast for Dinner, CHG, and T0 Racing Ascent only separated by the best part of 54 points. It is looking very insatiable, the hunger of those 4 drivers, and Gator Racing want to be in there, but they are in 10th and only the best part of what is 42 points ahead at Gasparilla Motorsport. T0 Racing Summit, they are a further 6 behind, and Monster Energy Racing then earmark the rest of the field ahead of Formula Llama by 25 points, and in 212 Racing and Mid-Pack Mafia are the last to have points to their names, with the team's yet to score points including Chase Sim Racing, Second Breakfast, Academy Sim Racing, and Problem Child Motorsports. As the Delta Teams Championship, last but not least, we come to this, and as we do see T0 Racing Ascent on 617 points, well, they right now leading and growing a little bit of a gap, and despite the fact they had a tough round at COTA, the drop scores definitely go in handy in the team's in the drivers' championship, but what is coming very much handy in the team's championship, where drop scores do not apply as far as I'm aware, is the fact that Gator Racing had a worst round compared to T0 Racing Ascent, and that's been really the difference of them. But coming into this round, both teams will be firing on full cylinders. Gasparilla Motorsport, they sit in third, and they had a very strong round, and they are closing very quickly now on the second place team, but they've got to be aware of the fact that Sim Racing Grid are still hot on their heels, and CHG meanwhile are not too far behind. Monster Energy Racing sitting 6th ahead of 212 Racing, and it's Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport, Croc Promotions, and Breakfast for Dinner who complete the Delta Championship top 10, and the best of the rest in 11th is none other than Mid-Pack Mafia, 3 points adrift, and it's a further, it's 18 points back to T0 Racing Summit, who are still waiting to land a big score. Well, that's a rundown of all the standings, ladies and gentlemen, and as our circuit does get ready to transition over to going green flag racing over to that grid, well, we've got a little special something for you as we get that transition underway. It's time to say a very happy birthday to the Alpha Touring Challenge. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Walsh here, your Season 16 commentator, and previously in the booth for Seasons 5 and 6. As we get ready to go racing here at Watkins Glen today, why don't we hear from some of the drivers up and down the grid as we all get together to say, Happy 5-year anniversary, Alpha Touring Challenge.
Hello, Micah Hendricks here. I've been with ATC since the second race of Season 5. My favorite part about the league is the people, the friends that I've made, meeting several of them in person in Baltimore, New York, California, Las Vegas, and even up in Canada. Got to meet the man himself, Logan McKenzie, here in Phoenix. So just the incredible camaraderie that everybody has, making fun of bunch of different things on iRacing has been always the best part. So just a quick shout out to Logan for making 5 years of ATC happen, and looking forward to many more.
Hello everyone, this is JB DJ. I have been with ATC since season 1. I did take several seasons off there a few years back. It started back up, about a year and a half, 2 years ago. And my, how it has grown. Kudos to Logan, what a community he's built. Pleased to be a part of it. And thank you to everybody who's a part of this. So happy 5th anniversary ATC, and looking forward to the next 5. Bye.
Hey everyone, I am Kyle Trost. It's been an absolute pleasure racing with you guys for the last 2 seasons. I appreciate the patience you guys have had with my inconsistencies over the last 6 months. I've been racing for only about a year now. Seen massive gains with you all. I wanted to say happy birthday to ATC. 5 years, it's crazy. Big thank you to Logan and all the admin team for all your hard work. Appreciate it.
And so, ladies and gentlemen, with our 5-year anniversary messages there, lovely messages from some of our drivers, we head to the grid then for our one and only race this evening for the 5-year special. Round number 5 sees our drivers line up as follows with the inverted grid. And it's Damon Mitchell who takes overall pole position and pole for the Gammas for Croc Promotions ahead of Formula Llama's Zachary Leopold. Then on row number 2, it's going to be Zachary Bowman ahead of Matt Shepka with the Pennzoil Super Touring and Curb Your Enthusiasm Autosport drivers looking to go toe-to-toe straight away. Major Monster Vice starts in 5th, just ahead of Mike de Almeida for Yellow Flag Motorsport, with James Carr for Breakfast for Dinner, and none other than John Daniels line up on the 4th row of the grid. Behind the T0 Racing Summit drive, it's then going to be Cooper Akers for Pennzoil Super Touring, ahead of John Lauzon for Beaver and D's, and then outside that top 10, starting in 11th, it's going to be the first of your Alpha drives there of Wojciech Swierdowicz. The Breakfast for Dinner drives then followed up by Dan McFarlane for Sim Racing Grid ahead of Raymond Tew, with the Beaver and D's drive then in the company of Logan McKenzie for Pennzoil Super Touring, and then we will see behind them on the 8th row of the grid Micah Hendricks for Croc Promotions and Michael Polasek for Yellow Flag Motorsport. That completes your Group 1 starting order, albeit we have to consider the fact that Nicholas Sudik will start at the very back in 17th for that group, given he has not competed enough rounds yet to be valid to be in that group, so therefore Sudik there wrapping up that Group 1, and then we do have the Delta class. Group number 2, it begins thus. It is going to be Angel Bonilla Soto starting in 18th. For Mid-Pack Mafia, ahead with fellow Delta drivers there of teammate first hit Jalen Kuo and none other than what will be Kurt Smith. Then behind them on row number 11, as we leave the top 20 behind, it's going to be Jason Breen for Sim Racing Grid ahead of Gator Racing's Mark Darnell. Then we do have Andy Kosick starting 23rd, just behind the Privateer ahead of Monster Energy Racing's Jeremy Barber. And we will have on row number 13, it's going to be the pairing of Jonathan Bradford and Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport's Spencer Clark. On row number 14, Sean Gurd, he looks ready to go racing once again today, and he'll be hoping for a big result for Gasparilla Motorsport. He's going to be in the company there of Mitchell Richmond for Monster Energy Racing, who may have a golden opportunity here to score quite big. And then we will see on what will be our row number 15 to complete that top 30, Austin Dunbar and Joseph Heath. Behind the Honda driver, starting in at 31st place, it's going to be Corey Lobner, one of the stars of the grid, who definitely right now is hoping for a big result at some point sometime soon. He's ahead of Gareth McAllister for Monster Energy Racing, and on row 17, it's going to be CHG's Carl Murray, who's definitely impressed so far this season. Can he impress us once again today? He's going to be ahead of Jason Lynn, the official photographer for the series, of course, and well, the Gator Racing driver, and I'm hoping that he can get some photos or be a victorious day for himself. Then we do have Adrian Fedorowski starting 35th for 212 Racing ahead of Gasparilla Motorsports Ryan Meffo, and then in fact Ronald Meffo there, let's get his name correct, and then we're going to have just behind him none other than JB Dejoux. And we heard from only moments ago in the 612 ahead of Kyle Flannery for Gasparilla Motorsport, who right now knows that he needs to recover all that momentum he lost at Texas. Then it's going to be Fuad Al-Riji starting 39th there. The CHG driver, he's got a lot of work to do, but to be fair, he's got the pace to do it. He's ahead of T0 Racing in a sense, Carl Trost. And well, he may be relatively new to the grid, but I can tell you one thing, it's been an impressive season so far from the 21 driver. And then we do have outside the top 20 rows, starting 41st, it's Zachary Hidako ahead of Jared Calnins. And then we have on row number 22, Evan Clavio and Chris McDonald, and then it will be completing that inversion. Well, it'll be the three drivers who are not eligible to be part of it, and therefore they must start at the back. It's going to be Kevin Johnson and Thomas Fancock who start on the 23rd row of the grid, and then it's going to be Zach Saunders who completes your starters in 47th. No Tyler Long here today, intriguingly enough, ladies and gentlemen, so he will commit this as a drop score, but we will see where it's going to go for him. Indeed, all the drivers, as the grid is set, it's time for lights, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen, as the lights are on, and without further ado, 45 minutes here is going to get underway. 3, 2, 1, it's lights and away we go here at Watkins Glen International as our drivers are all the way away, and Zachary Leopold gets a good start as Damon Mitchell falls a long way down the order, I believe due to a technical issue with the car, but coming in towards the opening braking zone. Well, immediately everyone in the attack right now, and a bit of a bish and a bump there between a couple of drives, but most drives safely up through the opening quarter. A few decide to run wide there, cars going out wide, spinning sideways, Kurt Smith goes sideways, plus also Gareth McAllister, but right now we'll hold the phone on that, and meanwhile stay attached to the phone call at the front of the field, and right now drivers try and dial things in as best they can. You see Wojciech Swierdowicz battling hard here with Cooper Akers. They make the way onto the first long stretch, and coming down towards the bus stop chicane this time, we're going to get plenty of laps of racing here, no doubt about it. They're still going to be too wide here heading into the braking zone, but will Akers get ahead, or will Swierdowicz force his nose in? It's going to be Swierdowicz, and Akers has to take to what will be the escape road there effectively, as we see a driver run very wide. That's John Lauzon taking the trip. He rejoins, but he's going to lose a lot of momentum here, and he may be at risk of a slowdown. As he does rejoin, coming into the outer loop, he's going to lose out there versus Polasek and McKinsey who get on through. And both Polasek and McKinsey have both had a good start to this race. They make the way now down towards turn number 6. 3 wide, here we go. He's going to be Lauzon in the middle. Meanwhile, your Delta leader, Benita Soto, tries to go up the inside. Can he get it done? The answer is yes, as now it's going to be Micah Hendricks and John Lauzon fighting hard side by side. And in towards the braking zone for turn number 7. Somebody's got to give way, and in the end it is going to be Lauzon there who gives way to Hendricks, and on to lap number 2 they go. One absolutely brilliant lap number 1, and Zachary Leopold makes his way down. Then your Cameron overall leader ahead of Bowman, followed by Shepka. Then it's Monsavai, followed by Di Almeida. Then we have Daniels, Carr, Swierdowicz completes the run to 8th place, and where it starts off the Alphas, they all run nice and wide there. NASCAR track limits do apply, and as they come out of turn number 1 right now, carrying all the speed they can, Swierdowicz has still got more work to do, as we can see Cooper Akers and Dan McFarlane completing that top 10. Best there is Michael Polasek, who right now championship leader. He's going to gradually try and move his way forward as quickly as he can, albeit gradually and quickly. They sound contradictory, but he does have this art, if you will, of very quickly making his way through past drivers, but at a very gradual rate in terms of what is aggressive he makes the progress. But as we look further back, we do see there 2, 3 wide. It's going to be Mark Darnell fighting with Breen, and in the end it's going to be Breen who gets ahead of Darnell, and Murray just behind, tucking in his Audi RS3. Oh, that's a bit too wide there. Spencer Clark. Oh, it's into the wall, and Clark then collecting what I think there was none other than the car of Jason Lynn, and Lynn are going to the barrier coming into turn number 5, and also the DHL machine there getting caught out. That I think was the car of none other than what was, I think it's been towed to the pits. We'll get an update on it shortly, but I think that was Joseph Heath being collected there. Bit of drama, we'll get a replay of that when we can. Indeed, we've got a few moments to get replays of it at the start of the race as well. So when we can, we'll get a replay of those. But meanwhile, as all drivers come towards the end of another tour of the circuit, well, the tempo is not going away. As we see in the foreground there, that's going to be Swierdowicz looking at the inside of John Daniels, but we're looking towards Jalen Kuo versus Jonathan Bradford here. Kuo on the inside in his Audi RS3 as he battles, but as he comes down to those brakes there, he's going to keep Bradford at bay for now. And it looks as though Kuo enjoying the circuit, but meanwhile, further back, it's going to be always 3 wide. There's the couple for turn number 1, and we'll see Bradford, Breen and Darnell all together, but we're on the way up the hill right now, where it's going to be all about essentially Sean Gerd now trying to tuck into the draft, but the problem is Honda will have here is the fact it's not as quick, but he's going to have an even bigger problem there as he turns the Audi of what was none other than Carl Murray sideways. They have a little bit of an elbow bump there. I think Carl Murray politely saying to him in car speak, don't do that again please, but looking down into the braking zone there, Ronald Meffo looks up the inside. Can't quite find it, he lets it go. So Gerd does take the place back off of Murray, albeit they both survive it there when it could have been far, far worse. Well, we're all grateful for that. I'm sure both drivers are grateful for it as well. Otherwise, that could have been an absolute tears, but it wasn't quite to be. But right now, Ronald Meffo here looking for an opportunity to move into 7th place in the Delta class. A couple of drivers washing out wide there, including Hidalgo, albeit that's because he's having to deal with the fact that Jared Calnins is trying to go all the way around the outside of him. And well, Hidalgo here right now into the 2 wide into turn number 6. Is he going to be able to hold it there in what will be the lovely liveried Honda? The answer is yes for now. But coming into that braking zone for turn number 7, will we see Calnins look for the switchback here? The answer is not quite, as we jump on board with Calnins as he takes us on board for what will be a good portion of the next lap. We can see a bit of fighting going in front there. That is going to be Dejoux, Meffo and Dunbar all getting very square with each other. In towards 90 right they come, and where it looks as though there it will be Dejoux who just gets back ahead as he runs out nice and wide there in his Hyundai Elantra. And as they get on towards the S's now, well, here comes Calnins looking around the outside. 9 at Hidalgo's Honda will struggle initially up the hill until it's got a bit of a toe. The Honda does have a very weak 4th to 6th gear in the drivetrain. However, in the toe, it does offset that to a degree. And remember, all these cars, if they all run the same amount of rear wing, they will all be equal in terms of top speed. It's about how they get there. But setups make the difference. As we jump off the onboard, and we see the ball scrambling now in towards the bus stop chicane. And in the end, we'll throw out our Richie now, trying to take a little bit of a poke there versus count-ins. As meanwhile, Hidako has to take the escape road. And as he does, well, he's going to have to give back that time. He managed to give back the place to the result. And I think he will have to do so here, coming out of outer loop, as he immediately lets Mefo back on through. I think then he made the intention, which was to go too wide, but it wasn't enough, and he didn't have the grip or the space to work it. But, well, we've been looking at all what's going on further down the order. We come back to the front of the order, and, well, we've already 5 minutes complete, and we're on to lap number 5. Quite poetic. Well, as I say so myself, Leopold and Bowman, they're your leaders. Shepka falling back a little bit right now, and Wojciech Swierdowicz, meanwhile, he's already up from what was 11th place to 4th place. He is quickly gaining, but Michael Polasek is gaining as well. And you can see Danielson Carl, the two Gammas separating the two Alpha drivers as they roar the way up the score and in towards another straight. But further back, Akers and Mike Almeida, they're close together right now. The two Pennzoil Super Touring teammates working as best they can together. Indeed, I'm getting flashbacks to Wade's NASCAR liveries on those cars from what had been the 90s era, if I remember correctly. I'm sure they'll correct me if not, or early noughties potentially when I was growing up as a kid. But as they make their way in towards with the bus stop chicane there, well, memories of liveries. I can tell you one thing, they're memorable cars, those two Velosters. And, well, the Veloster behind them right now trying to make himself memorable. That is going to be none other than what will be, well, it'll be Dan McFarlane trying to put some pressure on there. As Mike Almeida right now on the attack in the yellow flag Motorsport machine, right in the back there of Cooper Akers, and Logan McKenzie trying to pull his teammate along as best he can, but McFarlane looks one way, then he looks the other way, and the answer is going to be no way through right now, but he's going to keep trying. As Michael Polasek, meanwhile, is going to be up the inside here, James Carr through 6th, to the outside of 7. What's it going to be as they rub door to door here, and the answer is going to be around the outside. Polasek may just have this. Carr puts up a bit of a fight, but doesn't put up too much of a fight, and I get the feeling right now Carr is more focused perhaps on following Polasek to chase down Daniels and the rest of the Gammas up front, as it's got very well Carr round there. I think that's Mark. Is that Mark Darnell who's gone around? No, it's not, but that is Sean Gerd who's rolling backwards into the pit lane. So Gerd's been turned on the final corner, and I don't know how that's happened, but definitely a big moment there, and not a happy one for him. As meanwhile, well, Jason Breen, Bradford, and Darnell having a good old ding-dong battle here as we look back for the rear of Breen's car. The only problem is he makes his way through turn number 2. He's got a man on his outside. We look to the exterior picture, and there is the proof of the man on the outside, and oh, goodness me, careful Jonathan, coming across like that. Well, he knows exactly how much he's got to play with. Meanwhile, Breen, I think, has to lift off the throttle slightly in respect to the fact that Bradford was coming up through, and, well, the Honda driver trying to make it clear to the Elantra driver he's not going to let him go, but in towards the chicane they come, and as they do, too wide still, too wide all the way through. Brilliant racing between the two. This is true respect between Jonathan Bradford and Jason Breen, and in the end, Breen on the inside, but Bradford right now using the lateral grip of the Honda to his advantage. He's still out there. He's going to carry all the speed as he makes his way through, and Jonathan Bradford somehow, some way manages to hold it, but now it's a two-wide fight into turn number 6. And if he's on the inside here, he's going to be on the outside at the next corner, as Darnell, meanwhile, also trying to sweep his way on past there. Breen does clear Bradford, and Darnell's now going to try and make the move. And Carl Murray here sees up the inside as well. So it was a resilient battle there from Jonathan Bradford, but in the end his defences did wane, and as a result he's had to give way, and that was the big fight there over third place in the Delta class. As meanwhile, Jalen Kuo has picked up a slowdown somewhere by looks of things. Alternatively, he's had a really poor run out the final quarter, because Sonny Breen's all over the back of him, and looking around the outside now, and Mark Darnell's on the inside. They're going to make it pretty wide up through the S's. No, they're not. Yes, they are. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But I'll tell you one thing right now, they absolutely push each other to the limit here. And Darnell trying to hold on as they come through onto the stretch. And as they do, well, here comes Bradford once again. He says, remember me, guys? And they're right now probably thinking, oh, no, not you. And he's going to say, yes, here I am. As they head into the braking zone for the chicane. And going in will just outpower them in the Audi RS3. But you can see that Darnell right in his rear bumper. And Carl Murray queuing up all these Delta drivers right now, all nose to tail here, and this is essentially the run of Deltas from 2nd all the way through to, well, in fact, not 15th, all the way through to 17th, with a gamma of Damon Mitchell intermingling in amongst the pack here. He's the odd one out, but otherwise they're all fighting fierces. We look back to Chris McDonald, and after his dismal day in Texas, he'll be hoping for plenty more today. He needs it, of course. He'll need some big points here, but everyone knows that they're high up in the championship. They've got a lot of work to do if they want to try and pick up the points and pick up the places, and that's what makes this such a special race event right now, with the fact that it literally is an inverted grid in the championship of the Deltas. Therefore, they've got to worry about the fact you've got to fight for every place if you want to score well, if you've had a very good championship so far. This is going to be the true round which tests your ability to battle, let alone be quick. As they come through in towards 90 right, well, 10 minutes of this race almost gone, and without further ado, ladies and gents, as much as we want to keep seeing all the battling here, we need to take a look back at some of the big moments from earlier on in the racing, and here we go with a trip back in time. So this was the race start, and as all drives went to get underway, the first drive we need to take a look at in terms of all going wrong, well, we look a little bit further down the order as they went to go, but we need to take a look at Kurt Smith in particular. We look a bit further forward, in fact, and Will Smith had a bit of a slow start then, the breakfast for dinner car, but what exactly went wrong into turn number 1? That's what we need to know. And went into the braking zone there, all the field jostling, as you'd expect at Watkins Glen. Small tap there with Jalen Kuo, trying to go around the outside, and unfortunately that sent him spinning out, and his race ended up backwards as quickly as that. And Gareth McAllister decided to join him in solidarity, and will McAllister being ejected out there? How exactly did that happen? Well, here we go with McAllister's perspective of what exactly happened, and as he made his way into the braking zone, the Monster Energy race machine turned in, and just a tiny tap there, and that's what sent him all the way around with a Honda. Couldn't quite see who it was. I'm not sure if that was Corey Lobner's car. Probably not. It may have been Jason Lynn's, in fact, because a bit later on, what exactly went wrong into the bus stop chicane? This was John Lauzon. Definitely find out how wide the bus stop chicane is and how wide it is not, as he, oh, goodness me, there was some contact there. I think that might be for his teammate behind. Not 100% sure, so don't quote me on that, ladies and gentlemen, but that's what happened to him. And then we had this for Jason Lynn coming on through, made his way into the corner. Well, he looked absolutely fine this time around, but I think it went a bit wrong for Jason Lynn the lap after, as we take a look back at what exactly happened on lap number 2. This was Spencer Clark and Jason Lynn through the bus stop chicane. Clark is the focus of our attention here in what is the black and purple Honda. Takes way too much curb down exit and collects Lynn, and also there trying to take evasive action was Joseph Heath. This was the on-board from Joseph Heath's perspective as he hopped and skipped his way through the chicane. He'll see there the Honda on his right going wide. There goes Lynn, and in the end Joseph Heath takes the escape, and he runs out of road there, and in the end almost ends up going back right onto the racing line. Thank goodness he didn't. I think he had his brakes firmly attached to the floor there in order to try and stop the car, and he did so very well. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we make our way back to your live racing pictures. So those were some of the big moments from the very start of the race, and well, huge moments there, and thankfully they weren't as huge as what they perhaps could have been, because it could have been a lot of drama here, as right now, well, we've got more fighting to go, as that's the car going very slowly down the start-finish straight. Not quite sure there. We couldn't quite get a replay of what happened to Sean Gerd when he had the spin out the final corner into the pits, ladies and gentlemen, and therefore well, that's going to be lost to time for now. But I can tell you one thing right now, we're not losing time, the fact that we've still got more battles to come. We look back to the very front of the field. Zachary Bowman and Zachary Leopold still together here, and well, it's the Veloster versus the Audi. These two have literally been nose to tail since the very start of the race. They've started towards the front of the field, to be fair to them. But both of the two Zacharys right now trying to prove which one's the superior of the other. Well, Bowman right now definitely just a step ahead. However, Leopold in that Audi RS3. We've got to wonder here whether perhaps he's playing the game or just be a bit more conservative and wait until the end to attack, because they are probably expecting what will be the Alphas to come on through, of which, well, you have two very determined Alphas here. One of whom is Wojciech Swierdijk, and the other is the championship leader overall of Michael Polasek, firmly in his wheel tracks right now. And Swierdijk is probably thinking to himself, what do I have to do to beat the American? Well, the first thing he's got to do is stay ahead of him, no wonder about that. But after that, well, everything else he's got to try and dig deep to figure it out. As meanwhile, Shepka and Polasek here side by side as the car leaving the pit lane there, going slowly up the hill. That was none other than Carl Murray after his repair work has been completed to the car. And well, right now it's going to be Shepka losing out there to Polasek, but I don't think he'd be too upset about that. Bowman meanwhile trying to push himself forward. Leopold giving him a bit of assistance there, and I think the Formula Llama driver right now saying to him, let's just keep going forward, let's leave Shepka behind. I don't want to fight you right now, we'll do that later. Logan McKenzie, meanwhile, well, here he goes, looking for the move versus John Daniels, and he'll pass the T0 racing drive quite succinctly there as he makes his way through the chicane. So we are starting to see some of these Gamma drivers, I think, opt to give up the places to the Alphas, even though they score points overall first and foremost, and then they score some bonus points after the fact. But I get the feeling right now it may be the situation whereby essentially what's happening is these Gamma drivers are thinking to themselves, the Alphas are going to come through eventually. Is there a point fight in them? As meanwhile, there's a fight going on for the Alpha lead. This is Swierdijk versus Polasek. Polasek up the inside in towards turn number 6, and right now the Yellow Flag Motorsport driver throwing everything at this early. He wants the lead of the class, he wants to get on past. Swierdijk immediately squeezes him to the wall, but Polasek does get his nose in. There's enough space to go for this. Swinging, he has the right to the inside of 90 right, and here they come onto the brakes. Now Now what can Sweardike do here? And there's going to be a contact between the two of them. It sends them both wide. Oh, there's plenty of road width there. They don't have to worry about hitting the barrier. And as they make their way onwards, well, Shepka now is going to have a little bit of a look here versus Sweardike. And that might be it. It may be, at least for now, that Sweardike has to back off and let it go. And Michael Polasek in the end having to be firm but fair versus his rival. And understandably, Sweardike not wanting to give him an inch. And in the end, as soon as Polasek is given an inch, he will take a whole mile of his rival. It doesn't matter how much space you give, but he will find that space to work with. Meanwhile, further back, well, this is getting very juicy, is it not? As we do have Dan McFarlane trying to keep Raymond 2 and Kuba Akers behind. And right now, the very colourful liveried Hyundai Elantra here, one of the best liveries on the grid, some would say. Albeit I'm not allowed to say which ones are, in my opinion, ladies and gents, because I love all the liveries of the cars, and all drives are equal in my eyes. But right now, I can tell you one thing, all these Gamma drives, they are all looking very equal as well as they make the way on around. We may have what is the top three of Gammas running away to a degree. As you see a flash of the headlights there, that's not a very happy driver in the Elantra at the back of this group. But as Major Montsavai tries to get a little bit more involved here, make his way through. Well, understandably right now, the Hot Wheels driver here, I think he feels as though he's been inconvenienced by something that has happened, and therefore he wants a place back. We're trying to say to a driver, look, that was a bit cheeky. The flash of the headlights, of course, is Morse code for so many things here in motorsport, and well, understandably, we have not got a Morse code textbook out today to be able to discern it, as we do have a bit of a yellow flag waving there down towards turn number 1, so somebody's got it a bit wrong, but as all these drivers coming through right now, there's still plenty more to go. We are only a third of the way through this race. We have got plenty more here under what will be the American sun, and right now not a drop of rain in sight. And at Watkins Glen right now, that means our drivers can absolutely go full throttle every step of the way. As John Lau's on there, almost losing it going through the S's. I don't know if anybody else saw that. He took a lot of apex curve at what was turn number 3, and it actually unsettled the rear of the car. The front left tyre got perched up on it, and he slid a little bit. In the end, he was able to hold it together, but that was very risky for Laus, and that almost went round there. And right now, the Beaver and D's driver, who really has put a lot of his bad luck to bed over the course of this season, well, we'd be hoping that right now it doesn't come back anytime soon. We do mention it, we don't want to mention it, because he really has been the star of the last couple of rounds, but that was almost a bit of a slide loose there, as we briefly lost Micah Hendricks to the ether. He's rematerialised in the timing tower, but from then we come back to the very front here, as that's going to be the Audi in front there of none other. I believe that is going to be the car there of, I believe it's Zach Saunders making his way onto another lap. So Saunders, of course, involved in a bit of instant earlier on. We've also had a few drivers opt to make some pit stops nice and early here, because there is that one mandatory stop for the tyre. And in terms of fuel, well, if you think you can get to the end on a single fuel tank, you can try, but alternatively you might need to take a quick splash and dash as well. But up the hill they go, and well, flashing headlights there understandably from Bowman. That's Morse code for the drivers who are going to go a lap down to say, please get out of the way. Blue flags being waved, do my sign, and as they head down towards what will be the bus stop chicane here, well, you can see Michael Polasek right on the back, and we're roaring the way on through into that braking zone. Here he goes, Polasek up the inside, and well, Zach Leopold right now lets it go to a degree, but Polasek as well being really adventurous here, and well, the yellow flag motorsport driver, he's worried about Sweardike coming back at him right now, because yes, Sweardike fought him hard, and he was able to clear Sweardike, but the flip side of the coin is, I think here for Polasek, he needs the comfort barrier. He needs a couple of seconds to know this race is in his control. Until he's got it, he will not feel safe. Nobody feels safe in this grid, to be fair, unless you've got a couple of seconds over your rival. We've seen it time and time again already this season, over the last, 15 seasons, that having a 1 second advantage is not enough. 2 seconds, nowhere near enough. You need at least 5 if you want to feel safe in these races where there's a pit stop involved, because it can very quickly go right, it can very quickly go wrong in the pits, and it all comes down to how many tyres you're changing as well. As into the pits comes John Daniels, so he decides to pit nice and early. Also, a few more drivers coming in. They've got to be careful that pit line. I think they are allowed to get away with it, to be fair, given the NASCAR track limits that are being employed, and if we may have misinformed you earlier with regards to being that difficult to pit entry, but they've got to be so careful with it because of the fact it's very easy to pick up a pit entry penalty. But it looks like there, a couple of drivers cutting it late. And as we do see Sweardike right now, he has clearly a bold coming up the hill through the S's. Well, now it's going to be Sweardike versus Polasek. Can he close him down? As Leopold literally saying to Sweardike, no, go faster, don't defend, let me push you forward, because your Honda is so slow on the straights. And right now, Leopold, your Gamma leader, he does not want to have to deal with Sweardike. He wants Sweardike to pull him away from Bowman, who's right behind him. But Bowman right now is refusing to be left behind. As we look back to the start for the straight, we've been giving you a lot of look at the front of the field, and this is going on further down. This is going to be be. Mitchell Richmond looking up the inside of Carl Trost, with Jared Calnin's taking all the road and plenty more real estate, but as they all re-emerge. Well, Kevin Johnson on his debut, he's having good fun, to be fair. He started in none other than 45th place. He's made his way all the way up into 10th place in the Deltas and 21st overall. He's looking very good there, and indeed that is a very funky livery on the car, no doubt about it, and well, that's going to be an eye catcher. And as they make the way down the back stretch right now, well, can he keep Trost behind? Trost looking up the inside here, and I think Carl Trost is going to get this done. He will in that land trick. Gives a bit of space there, to be fair to Johnson. I think Johnson would have forced it to the apex, and he almost did. I think Kevin Johnson was just a bit of a 50-50 there. It was almost if he were to flip a coin inside the car, thinking, do I stay with it? Do I not? And in the end, he went half in and half out for the defence there, and well, Trost had to react as a result, and that's all part of the learning as a Delta, try knowing exactly when to keep your nose in and when not, and sometimes when to just keep it half in and keep your rival guessing. But Jared Calnin's here still fighting with Mitchell Richmond as they all converge, coming towards the end of this lap. Will we see any more make the way into the pit lane? And the answer is going to be too wide on the exit of the corner. No, as Richmond gets back ahead of Calnin's there and holds on to that 12th place in Delta 4 now. But plenty of pit stops playing out here, and I think we might be able to give you the graphic of who has pitted thus far. And in fact, we can, for a brief moment, perhaps do so. There was, ladies and gentlemen, we will be showing you that on that screen, on that timing tower, just to give you a bit of further information. And we can see right now it is primarily, it tries further down the order. Won't keep that for too long, just for the simple reason it does crowd what will be your real estate on the screen, but just gives you a bit of extra data there to mentally work with. Meanwhile, as the battling starts to calm down a little bit between drivers at the moment, we still do have what is a whole top 15 yet to stop. Plus, also the fact Damon Mitchell, who started from the pit lane, it should be pointed out, and he's made his way all the way up to 16th, albeit he was due to start in what was pole position, but he decided to yield at that pole position in the end. Well, right now, it does seem as though the Gamma driver moving forward at a good rate of knots here, and well, not quite the way he's wanted to start it, but the way he wants to end it is definitely on a high. We'll see if he can do so, as Mitchell Richmond has had to tow to the pits. So I think we had a couple more instants, and well, we're going to try and understand what exactly has happened with regards to those instants. And Zachary Bowman battling with Matt Shepka here. Shepka looking for a move on the inside, and we're right now full of enthusiasm, but will he be able to get it done, or will his rival say to curb the enthusiasm? And we'll know Shepka does get it done. Bowman not fighting it as hard as perhaps he wanted to there. I think Zachary Bowman, in fact, might be struggling a little bit at this point in the 654. That did not look to be a happy Veloster coming for the bus stop chicane. I wonder whether, because he's pushed so hard early on in the race, now he's actually overheated the front tyres a little bit, particularly that front left, which will be taking the greatest exposure of all of them in this is a clockwise circuit, and it does lean very much into the right-handers, and it's always the outside tyre of a corner that will take the biggest beating. As he comes in towards turn 7, does he decide to deflect to the pit lane this time? The answer is going to be no. He stays out. We can definitely see that Veloster is not looking as quick right now as it was earlier on, but we will see what he's going to be able to deliver a little bit later. But looking to Chris McDonald, meanwhile, he's fighting with JB Dejoux as these two look to scramble for 5th place in the Delta class. And we'll hear McDonald up the inside. Both drivers looking for a big result, particularly McDonald, who needs a big result to get his championship campaign back on track. Up the inside there, lovely move as he now makes his way in towards and turn number 7, and as you there looking to come back at him potentially with Ryder Moore looking back from the rear of the number 85 and power the way down the start for the straight here, and this is where the Elantra will now build some momentum. However, will he go for the move or not will be the question, and our 621 driver in the end decides not to, just decides to stay behind, and I think the idea here is get a good exit out of turn number 1 and then carry all the momentum to the bus stop chicane and get it done then and there. The only problem is when he does run a little bit deep off the apex at turn number 1 and McDonald nails the apex, that is going to see a swing of 2.5 attempts in the favour of the Honda right now that is trying to run away. And well, meanwhile catching up to what is one of our drivers going a lap down, that's going to be none other than what will be the machinery there from Monster Energy Racing. That's going to be the car of, well, is that going to be Gareth McAllister there stepping aside? I think it might be. And was they make their way through the bus stop chicane there, or they hop their way through? In fact, that's not McAllister, because McAllister is in this group battling with them. I do apologise. And in fact, that is going to be the machinery there of Jeremy Barber stepping aside instead. But going away on the round, Zachary Bowman's into the pit lane. So look at my commentary booth window. So he's decided to cut the race exactly in half practically. But meanwhile, speaking of cutting things in half here, well, you could cut the tension with a knife at the front of the field, because this is Polasek, leader ahead of Wojciech Swierdajc. Your top 2 alphas and overall drivers, they are now breaking away from the Gammas behind, because there is Zachary Leopold ahead of Matt Shepka, and Shepka has fallen 3 seconds back. But I think the fighting between himself and none other than was Bowman, plus also the way the traffic has played out, has just enabled Leopold to get a little bit more time. Shepka right now in a bit of a lonely second place, but to be fair, I think he'd be very happy if you said to him that's where you're going to finish today. Well, we'll see what he can do to chase down the leader. Logan McKenzie, meanwhile, well, he's bringing none other than Hidaka along with him, but Hidaka Darko is a lap down there, and McKinsey right now third of your Alphas, but he will be taking home the 5th points place finish given the way the race results work out for the Alpha drivers. They do not gain any bonus points apart from what is available to everybody in a given race round for the overall finishing positions and overall bonus points, but there are no bonus points specifically for the Alpha drivers, unlike in your Gamma and Delta classes. Speaking of the Gamma driver, well, there goes Damon Mitchell up the inside of another driver, taking another Delta in the form of JB Dejoux, who now has Clavio, McAllister and Smith together. And Evan Clavio, we haven't really talked about this man so far. The CHG driver has moved all the way up the order. He started 26th in class, he is up to 6th. However, we caveat it with the fact there are several pit stops that have been made by drivers who were ahead of him, so it'll be interesting to see where he falls out of it on the strategy. But with 20.5 minutes to go right now, Clavio is definitely trying to push towards the top 5 if he can today, at least the top 10, but he ideally needs a top 5, and that will put a big dent into Tyler Long's lead, and also it'll mean he can keep Chris McDonald, who is currently in 4th place up the road. He can keep McDonald honest and gradually close the gap in the top 3 of the championship. So Clavio right now is really the man to watch out for. If he nails this today, he is going to be a driver who is very coming strong, and he's got a very good run of points so far in the championship compared to his 2 rivals. That's the important thing, that over what will be 4 rounds, 5 after today, if this carries on, he will have very strong foundations going into what will be the second half of the season in a week's time. But Dejoux right now not thinking about that, nor Mitchell. All they're thinking about is how can I keep this man behind and chase down the guys in front. Indeed, everyone doing that in the heat of the moment right now, and indeed talking about points really just makes you think, is it worth thinking about? As that's going to be Andy Kosick sweeping on past Corey Lobner. Lobner there, letting the place go. And Kosig, I think, right now, turning on a run of form. Starting from the pit lane, intriguingly. Did not make his way to the grid due to a technical issue with the car. And well, number 50 driver now gradually trying to move his way forward up into 17th in the Deltas. But of course, now going a lap down, effectively, to the overall leaders. But we are going to see plenty of drivers go a lap down over this race, given the fact we do have a very short lap here of only 2.45 miles. And it is a very quick lap at that. But back to the front, and Polasek and Sweardich, they are getting closer and closer to each other here as they make their way down the back stretch. Sweardich here now looking for a potential move. We jump aboard the number 80 driver. Remember, when he was leading, Polasek really had to squeeze his way up the inside down the start-finish straight. Sweardich right now all over the back of the Veloster driver in a Honda that normally is a little bit better on its tyres compared to its peers over the course of a race distance. Now, his tyre life started to come back against Polasek here, given how hard they both had to push to get on through. Alternatively, is it just that now he's balancing the pace out now and he can't break away from Sweardich, so instead he needs to go to a plan B. What could that plan B be? Perhaps he's taking the pace down just to protect the other tyres, because he has to change one tyre at least. It will be that front left most likely. Well, we'll have to see, because both drivers right now staying out there, tucking the way in towards turn number 7. But Sweardich definitely now coming on strong as we get closer and closer towards the final third of the race distance. But down that start finish straight they go, and as they do, bringing themselves onto lap 22. Well, we've had a few incidents in the run up towards what is this point, and in terms of those big incidents, we need to take a look back at one in particular and what exactly happened to Mitchell Richmire is the big question. And well, we're going to see these two make their way towards the bus stop chicane, and then we're going to take a look back at what's exactly happened to Richmire, because he's had to tow to the pit, and what's looking to be a half decent day has gone down the drain. Here goes Sweardich on your screen right now. Back into 2 attempts once again. In fact, a bit closer this time. Peeling out. He's going to think about it here, going in towards the bus stop. But it's all just a bit of temptation. In the end, he does not dare to go for it. And Polasek having to hold just a little bit in reserve to see whether Sweardich might take a probe at one moment or not. As McDonald's and Mitchell enter the pit. And we very quickly head back in time to understand what exactly happened to Mitchell Richmire. So there, oh, goodness me, making his way to the bus stop chicane, straight into the barrier there. Well, there's got to be a story to that, because the Monster Energy machine, well, it would not have just gone straight to the barrier like that unless he made a complete mess of the entry. Here it was, chasing after Johnson, and as he made his way through, turned into the corner, and as he did so, oh my goodness, turning way too early there. Johnson didn't look to be fully aligned either. I wonder whether both drivers turned in too early, and Johnson turned in first, and Richmire went, well, I've got to turn in earlier to offset it. Well, that explains what happened to them. Back to your live pictures we go, ladies and gentlemen. And as we do come on back, we'll immediately back to your leaders for now, but we've also got action happening further afield. So our leaders right now, and again, Sweardich just this little bit closer this time, as Monservai's just come into the pit lane, so he's decided to come in. Darnell's also in, so they're all getting towards the end of their opening stints here, and Sweardich still on the back of Polasek. Does he go for it the third time around? He thinks about it once more. He's getting very close. In fact, perhaps a bit too close for cover for both drivers here. But no, he does not go for it. Meanwhile, Austin Dunbar versus JB Dejoux. And Dejoux has stayed out. Dunbar is also on a mission to make his way forward as they roar their way into the right and to the left. And in fact, these two drivers, now I've double checked when they pitted, they have actually both pitted. And therefore, they are fighting over 8th place in Delta at the moment. But we are still waiting to see where everyone is shuffled on around. Chris McDonald has pitted. We know that. So he's somebody they've both got to pass up the road. Fabio's into the pits. Mefo's into the pits. Also Darnell. They are all coming in. And in fact, Ronald Meffo already making his way on down. But it is such a long pit lane down here at Watkins Glen. And the pit limiter line, you can see it there, the little green cone that indicates where they can come off the pit limiter. But it feels very painful as they come down. And Mark Darnell right now, well, he'll come out ahead of Ronald Meffo. But the gap will be about 1.5 seconds. Where's Jonathan Bradford? Here is Bradford. As meanwhile, Polasek, Sweridich, McFarlane, Leopold and Shepker into the pits. And Mighty Almeida as well. What about McKinsey? Well, in fact, McFarlane stays out. Now that I double check. So McKinsey and McFarlane are going one more lap at least. But the battle for the win in the Delta class on the podium, it looks though it's Angel Bonilla Soto's to win, given he started on pole, he's run away with it. But Mark Darnell right now is chasing him down, and Ron Meffo is not too far behind, nor is Bradford. What else is happening in the pit lane, I hear you ask? Well, we look back to Sweridich, car up on the jacks there. Meanwhile, Michael Polasek making his way on through. And, well, in the end, it's going to be a little bit of a bigger gap compared to how they entered the pit lane, perhaps. I wonder whether Sweridich has changed 2 tyres and perhaps Polasek has gone all in on a single tyre change. Well, we're just double-checking the pit times right now. No. Ooh, careful, Wojciech. Running that deep off the pit limit, the pit exit line. That almost saw him pick up what would have been a black flag there for unsafe exit. And, well, in the end, Sweridich just keeping it within track limits from what I'm hearing. And Polasek, meanwhile, he has opened up a further gap. The gap has actually opened up to 2.6 seconds now. So it looks like Polasek, well, he's had the slightly faster pit stop. And also on top of that, he's not had quite as rough a run out the pit lane, and he has found some traffic, however. That's Kosick right in front of him, and then he's got Johnson as well, and he's going to hope that the blue flags are respected very nice and easily. Not to say the drivers won't respect it, of course, but the fact of the matter is, depending on when you catch the traffic, sometimes it's going to be more beneficial than others. And in the end, running off of turn number 5 and on towards 6, well, that's not been too bad for him. Meanwhile, back to Raymond Tew versus Major Monsarai. These two fighting right now over what will be 9th place in Gamma, or 12th place overall. Behind them, that is none other than Micah Hendricks, and right now being the best part of what is a lap down Hendricks, he's just trying to unlap himself. He has not had a happy day in the office. We didn't quite see what happened to Hendricks in the earlier stages, but unfortunately it has gone wrong for the Croc Promotions driver, and right now he's trying to pick up the pieces as best as he can. But heading in towards the left-hand return number 6, and it does seem as though the pressure might be on Monsarai to let the Alpha driver go, so that way he can catch back up to Tio, because he's losing Tio, and I think Hendricks right now will have a certain amount of patience, but we're hoping that Monsarai reads the writing on the wall, and therefore decides just to let things go. Because in some instances, when a car is behind you, and they are a lap down, they want to unlap themselves, and there's some drivers you definitely know you want to let unlap themselves, whereas others, meanwhile, you have to encourage them just to politely wait. Meanwhile, Mighty Almeida cannot wait to get closer to that exit out of 1, because he's got Akers and Lauzon right behind him as they head up the rise here, and a wee ride on board. Looking down over the front of Lauzon's number 77 Veloster, and the Beaver and Deeds driver right now chasing Akers and Diomeda. But it's been an interesting story today for Beaver and Deeds, given the fact they've started much further back in the order compared to many of their Gamma peers. They haven't made as much progress as perhaps they would like to, but I think that's a sign of how closely matched the Gamma class is, rather than Beaver and Deeds struggling. Now, of course, every team brings a setup of their choosing to the circuit for race and also for practice. I don't think the setup's held them back. I think it's just how close the competition really has been. We've seen some phenomenal moments so far today, and indeed we've still got plenty of time to go to see even more, but it does seem as though in the Gamma and also in the Delta class, drivers really are equally matched here, and on a very straightforward circuit such as Watkins Glen, which does have its own intricacies. It's a very easy circuit to learn, but it's a very difficult circuit to master. That's where we're seeing the differences lie. There's these small margins of what is a 10th or 2 between drivers that are really making the differences. Diomeda and Akers both scratch the wall. Meanwhile, Lauzon being a bit more conservative there and hoping that he doesn't touch it at any point. And I can imagine for the number 77 driver from Canada, he doesn't want to risk anything right now when the championship is definitely gradually turning his way. We're coming out of the opening corner. They get so close to exit, boy, it really makes your heart skip a beat, does it not? Well, meanwhile, coming back to Andy Kosick, battling with Kevin Johnson. They're almost a lap down on the group we've just been looking at. However, fighting over 12th place in the Delta class, and they're trying to close down Jalen Kuo and Carl Trost, who are just a little bit further up the road. Orbit Kuo is gradually breaking away in his Audi RS3. And if we tries to do so in the bottom of the camera there. Well, you can see Polasek, by comparison, not taking as aggressive an exit line there, and I think happy with the way the Elantra picks up speed just on the natural racing road. Meanwhile, Polasek whilst Johnson's deciding he needs every little bit of road in order to carry the speed in that Honda. But of course, when he runs out wide like that, whilst he may be able to carry a bit more speed, also do keep an eye, he is putting the tyres for a lot more steering angle as he rejoins the racing line, and that increases the amount of tyre wear, but it actually has an adverse effect. You actually shed speed the more turning input you have on the steering wheel, so it is a little bit of a double-edged sword there. He'll carry more speed through the corner, but on the exit he may actually bleed all that speed he's carried as quickly as that and increases tyre degradation. And in fact, Polasek here is now going to get a little bit closer as they head up the hill. Well, does he look for the move as we look on board the rear of Kevin Johnson's car? And your number 24 driver here, head down. The Honda, of course. Well, it may not be the fastest on the straights, but Johnson's Honda is definitely looking quite quick. And Polasek, by comparison, not looking as quick as we absolutely expect that Elantra to be. However, towards the bus stop they go, and as they do, Johnson holding it for now, but making his way through, gets a little bit wrong there, does Polasek in fact in the end, and it was Polasek on a much more linear line, and well, coming through, Andy Polasek right now falls back a long way, and in the end, with your lead lap cars coming on through, he's going to have to give up that fight for a brief moment at least. But to Logan McKenzie, meanwhile, and here's McKenzie, Leopold, and none other than what is Polasek stepping aside. And there's McKenzie in that third place. He's still trying to keep Leopold behind the Gamin leader. And a bit further back, we do have De Almeida, Akers, Lauzon, and Teal together. And in fact, the two Beaver and D's drivers have pulled up to each other now, with Teal gradually clearing Major Montsavai. And Micah Hendricks also there behind in the rear of the picture trying to unlap himself. But I think Teal and Lauzon, they'll be on the radio to each other. And I think they'll be discussing who exactly does what at this point onwards with 10 minutes to go. And how they potentially both move forward here to gain some more points for both their own drivers' championships and also the team's championship, because they are the team who really are the ones to beat in second in the championship right now, and they will definitely want even more points to try and close that gap to Pennzoil Super Touring, but also keep Yellow Flag Motorsports a bit further at bay. And Yellow Flag Motorsports or YFM are due a huge haul of points, particularly when you consider that Michael Polasek right now is going to be landing all the points at the front of the field at this rate, before I check Swear-Deitch, not able to bring that gap down. In fact, that gap has opened up by 2 tenths since we last looked at it, now up to almost 2.9 seconds. I think the pit stop's going to be the deal breaker here for Swear-Deitch today. He's just lost out. Meanwhile, going back to another YFM machine, the Yellow Flag Motorsport machine of Mike De Almeida, trying to go around the outside of their rival at Pennzoil Super Touring machine of Cooper Akers into the bus stop chicane, and in the end, it's tight, it's twitchy, but they do both survive it. Lovely battle in between the two of them, and Mike De Almeida moves up into 6th place in Gamma and 9th overall. It's an important move, and it just moves him that a little bit more comfortably clear, as now everyone queues up behind Akers, and they all want to find the way through. Does De Almeida have the pace to break away? However, that's the first thing he needs to worry about. As you can see, Lauzon here looking around the outside, there's contact, and in the end, Lauzon is able to keep it together, but a tiny touch there, sending the front and left of the Beaver and D's car upwards into the sky, and well, Tio in the end gets on through then. John Lauzon right now have used up one of his 9 lives as they make their way onto the next lap, but goodness me, a tiny touch there, but such a critical one at that, and those speeds as well, coming into that braking zone at the best part of 130 miles an hour. Those touches, no matter how small, they can be so critical, they can be disastrous as they head up the rise, and Lauzon right now will try and come back versus what will be Akers, but Tio and De Almeida, of course, will be trying to pull away. As further back, Austin Dunbar here still fighting with JB Dejoux for 7th place in the Delta class, and Dejoux holding on for now as they come up towards what will be the start-finish line. And well, further behind, they have not got really anybody to worry about because Jared Cownins is 13 seconds adrift, and meanwhile in front of them, Jason Breen's the next man, albeit he's 6 seconds up the road. So these two are locked in for the remainder of the race by the looks of things, albeit we're not complaining because we've been seeing some great battling between these two and also between them and other drivers so far this season, and we're in for a treat as we are potentially with Cole Flannery here as he looks to try and make his way past Corey Lobner. And well, right now it's going to be the white and blue HRC machine up the inside of what will be the black and orange Honda. Into that braking zone they go, and in the end it is going to be the Gasparilla Motorsports machine who moves up into 14th now in the Delta class. But Carl Flannery knowing that this has been a round where things have not quite been able to be turned around as best as he would like them to be, and indeed some of his rivals have gained a few more points by comparison. But here comes Kurt Smith trying to recover in the number 3 after a dismal start to the day. Side by side versus Barber into turn 1. Contact between the two, and Jeremy Barber goes deep as a result there. And well, I think both drivers getting their elbows out. I think that will be considered a racing incident, but heading up towards turns 2, 3 and 4. Well, Carl Flannery now gets a little bit closer. But of course, the Honda that came in right behind him there, that's the Honda of none other, not quite Flannery, but it is going to be the Honda, I do believe, of that Hidako right on the back of them there as they head over the crest. We're on the way onwards right now, where it is clear sailing for Jeremy Barber just for a little bit longer. These drivers all a lap down at the moment. What's happening on the lead lap? Well, there you go, because there are your leaders. Too wide we go. Raymond T up the inside of Cooper Akers. And John Lauzon trying to come through as well, but he can't quite find it. He's looking left. He's looking right. He's looking all over the shop here right now. Can he decide on the side to attack? No, because the problem is Cooper Akers is making himself wide enough. But making the way now all the way through. And, well, listening to what will be the lovely sound of his engine right now, knowing exactly where exactly to max out every RPM before he upshifts. And you can also see on the dashboard there, if you look on the left-hand side, whereby green at the moment, but that rev gauge will go to orange, then to red when he's about to hit the limiter, and that's why he's trying to hold it all the way as possible right now as Lauzon, because he needs every mile an hour he can in order to find a way past Cooper Akers, who's been passed by TU, but right now Lauzon's also got to do the hard work here as they head on to lap 31. There's approximately another 5 laps to go for these drivers. We are expecting 36 laps to be delivered here today, and well, right now the pace of the race is not ending. Oh my goodness, as that's going to be a very difficult moment there. 2 cars going towards the barrier. First it was Akers in a bit of a touchdown with Corey Lobner, and John Lauzon did the same, and well, they've all survived it. And just about, but it's cost all the momentum there for Akers, and Lauzon in the end gets so caught on the back of his rival as they make the way onto a long stretch, and Major Monsivai is caught up to this. Monsivai in the Elantra right now, the Hot Wheels machine, or could he be hot property here? Can he dive in between them both? Not quite now, but Akers definitely, I think can he get Lauzon to fall backwards, and Lauzon goes a bit deep for the chicane. That's going to cost Lauzon the momentum here, and now Monsivai gets ready to pounce as we look back from the rear of your number 77, and right now the Beaver D's car definitely the centre of attention for the right reasons in terms of being absolutely caught up in the battle. But where can Monsivai look for the move? Does he go for it here into turn number 6 and 9? He's then got to fight the way around the outside of 7. Not quite. He's going to wait just a little bit longer. His patience is absolutely admirable, but does he need to get a move on here whilst Lauzon's lost a bit of momentum? In towards 7 they go, and well, better run out the corner there from what was Monsivai with Lauzon touching the grass, and this is going to give him all the confidence he needs. Here we go then, ladies and gentlemen, down towards 90 right. 4 more to go, and as they head towards the braking zone, well, Monsivai's there. Lauzon outbrakes him, and in the end, by running deep, he's going to lose a bit of speed on exit. However, he does have all the runoff area to use, and Monsivai right now gradually builds some momentum here as they head up the hill. It's not going to be enough, so Monsivai will have to wait. Back to Zachary Bowman, further up in the gamma order. He has got Dan McFarlane behind him. McFarlane right now, well, he's doing a very good job, having started 11th in the class and what's 12th overall. And there's a car parked up there, and that is Kevin Johnson just parked up in the middle of the road. Well, thankfully not quite in the middle literally, but parked up just on the exit of the bus stop chicane. Something's gone to very wrong for him. Not quite sure what exactly has happened, ladies and gentlemen, but it's definitely been a bit of a disaster for Kevin Johnson, and we will try to understand when we can on that. I think we might not be getting any more replays now. I think we're going to focus on all the live racing all the way to the very end. Well, as we do, in fact, we do have a little look back further down the order. Here's Carl Trost trying to find his way past Jared Kalnins. Can find a way on through here versus the fellow Elantra driver, the 21 right now. Knowing that that's 9th place in the Delta class right in front of him. Should he be able to secure it? He's definitely had a fun race as Trost. This is going to be a top 10 finish either way, but can he find some more points before it's all said and done? And, well, looks to the middle of the road, and Kalnins puts himself right in the middle of it. Trost, meanwhile, looking around the outside, but a slightly compromised line there. The car slides loose on him. That is not going to be comfortable for him, and as a result, as he makes his way through the outer loop, he's now got to regroup and do it again. The car just understeered away for him, but that's going to be tyre wear and also a hot track surface, and, well, all that momentum and impetus, he's now got to regather it. Back to the front of the Delta class, meanwhile, and here's Mark Darnell, your 2nd place runner. Angel Bonilla-Soto briefly makes a cameo through the camera, and right now, Darnell Meffo, they are fighting over the 2nd place spot on the podium. And, well, Meffo has really come through the field. He has come all the way from 19th place in the class today. He has come from 36th in the starting order versus Darnell, who started 5th and started 22nd overall. But wherever they started, they've got to finish this one. As Bradford's into the pit lane, he didn't have enough fuel, so he's had a quick splash and dash. I wonder if any other drivers might potentially succumb to the splash and dash syndrome. We will see. Well, they've not been able to take the right amount of fuel, because we are going to be getting what will be 36 laps here if my mental mathematics is correct. So therefore, any driver who has fueled for 35 laps, they're suddenly going to have to save the fuel. Alternatively, it will be the embarrassing pit stop where they'll reveal the fact they just didn't take the right fuel in the first place. But as the Gasparilla Motorsport car just falls back a little bit here, we continue to ride on board with Meffo coming in towards turn 6. And it does seem as though in the first half of lap, on the medium to high speed bends, that's where Meffo is the stronger of the two. Meanwhile, it's outer loop into turn 6. That is where Darnell is the better of the two. But the slipstream here, of course, does confuse things a little bit in the fact that Meffo's always gaining a couple of miles an hour on every long stretch as we see them make the way in towards turn number 1. Going down to that braking zone right now. Mepho's just not going to have a way in at this time, but he needs a really good exit out of this corner. Can he do it? 3 attempts to the apex, and the answer's going to be no. They stay stationary right now. He will gradually gain, but it's not enough. And in fact, Darnell has the better exit out on 90 right, and now through the S's, he can feel comfortable at the fact his place is going to be nice and watertight. From them, we then make our way back to the very front of the field. Here's Logan McKenzie as he leads in the fight for third, ahead of Zachary Leopold, the Gamma leader, who is right behind him right now. And I think Leopold at this point is just staying with him to make sure he doesn't fall backwards to this man, Matt Shepka, who is bringing Bowman and McFarlane along with him. And in fact, the pace has fallen away from Shepka. The last couple of laps, Shepka has been losing half a second a lap at least. I think Shepka here might be vulnerable to a loss of second place in Gamma before this is done. We're on lap 35. Your leader of Polasek is making his way towards the end of the S's at turn number 4 right now, so we are going to be marginal here and get the 36th lap in. I think we're going to squeeze it in with about 10 seconds left. Fuel might be a real big question mark for a lot of drivers here. I don't think everyone has planned to do a 36 tour of the circuit. I think many have thought to themselves that we'll only get 35 because of the reverse grid, and therefore the fact that the fastest drivers will not be able to deploy their pace. But Polasek and Swedich have definitely shown differently, but from there, we look to McKenzie versus Leopold as we can see the fight for third. Well, Leopold right now, he's shown he's not just there to make up the running order. He's there to try and steal a third place away, but he can't quite do so. Makes a little bit of a drift there out of the bus stop chicane, and that understeer is going to cost him. Further down the order, we see that John Daniels fighting with Mike de Almeida, and Daniels is going to be safe because Almeida gets it wrong and runs out very wide. He rejoins Tiu, comes on through, and now here comes Cooper Akers, here comes Lauzon and Monsavai. But ladies and gentlemen, we look back to the front because there's your leader. 10 seconds left on the clock. We are getting a 36th lap here at Watkins Glen today. Wojciech Swedich is only 4 seconds behind right now, but that gap has opened up. I think Swedich may have decided he can't close down the leader, and Polasek may have this one, as long as he survives the final lap. And they've all got to survive one more, but I just wonder whether we're going to see some drivers here who are missing a little bit of crucial fuel, as Mark Darnell now knows he's got to hold on for one more lap after this. Here comes Mefo up the inside of it, the battle of the two Hondas. Mefo on the right, it's Darnell on the left, and they'll switch places on your cameras. They now make their way through 6 into 7, but of course Darnell still has the opportunity to defend to the inside, but Mefo clears him there, and the Gasparilla Motorsport driver moves into second in Delta with 2 seconds between himself and Angel Bonetta Soto, who you can see there, the Audi in white and black, as it makes its way into that braking zone 9. He's only got one more lap to go before he takes home perhaps his maiden win of the season. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as they make the way to the final lap, meanwhile, we need to look back to the very front, because here is Wojciech Swedich. He's huffed, he's puffed, he defended hard, but unfortunately, he couldn't quite keep Polasek behind. And when he came back at him, it wasn't enough. Losing that in the pits. And for Michael Polasek, well, how about this? Comes out of the final corner, and he will be your winner, not just around number 5, but the 5-year anniversary special at Watkins Glen. It's Polasek as he crosses the line ahead of Wojciech Swedich, who takes the runner-up spot, and it'll be Logan McKenzie who is just going to come through, and he holds on to third place overall. But for Zachary Leopold, well, in the end, it's a winning Gamma. That's what he weighed most, and the Formula Llama is on top. Head of Matt Shepka, who comes on a runner-up of the Gammas. Head of Zachary Bowman, who couldn't quite close it down in the end. Dan McFarlane has had a slow final lap. I think fuel's run critical. He's taken 4th in Gamma, 7th overall ahead of John Daniels, and it's Raymond Tiu, Mike de Almeida, who completes the top 10, with John Lauzon there in 11th, ahead of Cooper Akers and Major Bonsavai. And for Angel Bonilla Soto, well, how about this, ladies and gentlemen? He may have started on pole, but he's had to deliver the goods, and as he makes his way to line, he takes his first Delta win of the season, 14th overall. Well done to him. Head of Ronald Meffo, who just holds on to the run-up spot, head of Mark Darnell, and it's Chris McDonald. What a drive from him to come all the way from what was 44th on the starting grid to 17th, just ahead of Jason Breed, who gets his best result of the season in Delta, 5th overall. Well, no, 5th in class, and it will be 18th overall. And then Damon Mitchell will take 19th ahead of Jamie DeJoux, who in the end will take 20th and 6th place in Delta, just ahead of Austin Dunbar in their brilliant back and forth fight. I think both drivers absolutely love that one. And then it will be Carl Trost, who rounds off your lead lap finishers there in 8th place in Delta, 22nd overall. But I think he's going to be proud of that one, because that's some good points going into his championship bank account. But as they all cool them down, ladies and gentlemen, what a race here today at Watkins Glen. We could not have asked for a better race to celebrate the 5th birthday of the Alpha Touring Challenge. And indeed, the Watkins Glen circuit absolutely delivering for so many drivers. There was also some drama, some misfortune as well for the likes, for example, of Damon Mitchell, had to start for the pit lane in the end and lost out on that pole position start. Also for Micah Hendricks, who unfortunately involved in an incident we didn't quite see and losing out massively for Crop Promotions, only finishing in the end in 36th when he had so much pace to show here today. But where some have fallen, others have risen to the challenge. And well, for none other than Logan McKenzie, he may not have been in the company of Polasek and Swierdijk for long, but another third place for him. He'll be absolutely ecstatic about that. And there's a big shout out as well to Logan because, well, there are plenty of admin members here at AlphaTauri Challenge, ladies and gentlemen, but he is the man. Well, he is one of the drivers who has been on the grid since day one, but most importantly, he is the man who gave birth, I do believe, to AlphaTauri Challenge all those many years ago. And as he makes his way into the pit lane, if it were not for him, we would not be here today. As he shies away from the camera, hides himself in the pit lane, understandably here. I think it's an emotional one for him, and I think, well, to be fair, give him a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. He deserves it. And if he is in the chat watching this as a Premier's Live, well, Logan, I can tell you one thing. It's a pleasure to be able to cover this race. Indeed, I feel very special to have the chance to say happy 5-year birthday to the AlphaTauri Challenge as you see your race park up there. And well, goodness me, what a day it has been for him and for so many drivers out there. But as they all cool them down, well, let's take a look at those race results subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries. And here we are. So as we can see, after an incredibly intense 45 minutes of racing here in round number 5 of season 16 of the AlphaTauri Challenge at Watkins Glen International, this series, of course, powered by Syncmesh and Glass and Steel Photography and Design, Michael Polasek, your winner for Yellow Flag Motorsport, but had to do it the hard way, coming through the field. But in the end, in a two-way battle for the win between himself and Wojciech Swierdijk, well, it was the number 1 driver who, in the end, lived up to his door number and has added another win to his repertoire. The Polish driver, meanwhile, for breakfast and dinner, he did everything right to defend, he did everything right on attack, but unfortunately it was strategy that just slightly held him back. Logan McKenzie took 3rd place at Pennzoil Super Touring, the best he could achieve given the pace compared to the top 2, but he was pushed every step of the way by Zachary Leopold, who took 4th place overall, but also a Gamma win there, a very valuable one for Formula Llama in the 72, and Leopold's going to be absolutely ecstatic about that being his first Gamma win of the season. Matt Shepka, a brilliant drive to his first Gamma podium of the season, if my notes are correct, and the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport driver there were really pleased with that, no doubt about it, and had to work for it because Zachary Bowman chased him down at the end, but the Pennzoil Super Touring driver didn't have enough to make it from a 3rd to a 2nd in Gamma. So 3rd on the Gamma podium, he finished 6th overall ahead of Dan McFarlane, with the Sim Racing Grid driver showing a great turn of pace over the distance to come through the field, ahead of John Daniels for T0 Racing Summit, who put in his own good stint, and then Beaver and D's Raymond Tew and Mike De Almeida for Yellow Flag Motorsport completed your top 10 in a brilliant battle that included them, plus also John Lauzon for Beaver and D's and Cooper Akers, who finished in 12th there for Pennzoil Super Touring. Major one Savai, he was never too far behind in that group and in fact got right onto the back of it come the finish line, with Angel Bonello Soto in 14th place there, your Delta winner for Midpack Mafia. And whilst he did start quite up in the order, to be fair, he had the pace in his Audi RS3 to make sure nobody could touch him today in the Delta class. Meanwhile, in 2nd of Deltas and 15th overall, it was Ronald Meffo there for Gasparilla Motorsport, who put together an absolutely brilliant drive in the end to fight his way through to 2nd, including holding off Mark Darnell's late charge for Gator Racing. But still, the Gator Racing team will be absolutely pleased as punch with their performance, particularly for the Delta Class Championship, because it was a 3rd for Darnell and it was a 4th in class for McDonald, 17th overall, and that's some good points coming their way. Jason Breed, he was definitely one of our stars here for Sim Racing Grid, took 18th ahead of Damon Mitchell, with the Crop Promotion drive then followed up by Jamie DeJoux, who round off your top 20 there, 6th of the Deltas. Outside the top 20 overall, we had Austin Dunbar, the privateer, ahead of Carl Trost for T0 Racing Descent, who completed your lead lap finishes, and it was a lap down to several of our drivers, including Jared Calnins, who enjoyed a late battle with Jonathan Bradford. Evan Clavio as well couldn't quite find his way through the field as quickly as he wanted to, and Clavio definitely missed out on some important points today perhaps, but still, he did gain some place and he'd be happy with that, as we'll see in the Delta class position shortly. And behind him was Jeremy Barber ahead of Corey Lobner, with Kurt Smith, Mitchell Richmeyer and Joseph Heath completing your top 30, and shout out to Joseph Heath because it didn't go quite right at the start of the race, but to be fair, he did well to still finish a lap down given the way it started. Carl Flannery took 31st there for Gasparilla Motorsport ahead of 2 laps down finisher Andy Kosick, and there was also 2 laps down for Zach Saunders and also Jason Lynn, Zach Hidako and Micah Hendricks. And then we did see behind the Crop Promotions driver there none other than Thomas Fancock ahead of what was Kevin Johnson, with Sean Gerd and Jalen Koo unfortunately experiencing what was early instance and seeing them finish a long way down but still classified as finishers as they completed over half the race distance compared to the leader. And we did see right at the end of the overall finishing order, Kyle Murray with a bit of a late retirement, and also retirements for Fred Ridgely, James Carr, Nicholas Sudik, Spencer Clark, and Adrian Fedorowski, with both Clark and Fedorowski succumbing to incidents very early on in the race, and a very unfortunate day for them. But meanwhile, coming to what was your Gamma finishing positions, and of course this is where the Gamma class drivers will have some additional points awarded potentially, particularly if they finished on the podium. Well, Zachary Leopold taking that win for Formula Llama, a first win of the season in the class for him, and well, what a drive, 3.5 seconds clear of Matt Shepka and the Kirby Enthusiasm Autosport driver in a Honda that seemed to run out of steam towards the end of the race. He got the job done nice and early on to make sure he was on that podium, and the same for Zachary Bowman, who kept Shepka honest every step of the way for Pensol Super Touring. Dan McFarlane in the end was able to fight his way through to 4th place of Sim Racing Grid ahead of John Daniels at T0 Racing Summit, with both drivers going to and fro, but in the end it was McFarlane who got the upper hand, and Raymond Tew meanwhile led home the pack from 6th all the way through to 10th, with the Beaver and D driver able to find through where his teammate John Lazo could not quite achieve the same. However, Mike de Almeida split the pair of them for Yellow Flag Motorsport, and indeed in the end that's some critical points to the number 6 driver. Lauzon was 8th ahead of Cooper Akers of Pensol Super Touring, and Major Bosfire completed that top 10, and outside the top 10 it was Damon Mitchell ahead of James Carr and Nicholas Sudik, with the last two unfortunately retiring earlier in the race. And then coming to what was the Delta class finishing positions, last but by no means least, and we did see Angel Bonilla Soto take that win from Impact Mafia by 1.4 seconds ahead of Gasparilla Motorsports' Rodo Meffo and Mark Darnell finishing off that podium there. But what a podium, ladies and gentlemen. All three of these drivers taking their first podiums of the season in the Delta class, if my memory serves me correctly, and they all put on brilliant drives. For Soto, it was a real controlled drive from start to finish. For Meffo versus Darnell, a battle for both to carve their way on through, and particularly for none other than Rob Meffo, who started so far down the order and had come through like that. The Gasparilla Motorsport driver knows right now he's definitely made himself a Delta star this season. Darnell, well, he held on to that third, and in the end, it was a further 6 seconds back to Chris McDonald, the Gator Racing driver there, followed up his teammate, and that's why the team will be so happy right now with 2 top 5s, including the podium. That is a huge injection in their team's championship standings. Head of Jason Breen, who finished in 5th there for Sim Racing Grid, a second behind his best result of the season as well. Well done to him. And it was a further 10 seconds back to JB Deschaux, who enjoyed a brilliant battle, a race along with Austin Dunbar, and got the upper hand on the Audi driver in the end. And it was a further 11 seconds back to Carl Trost, the last Delta to finish on the lead lap, and that is the achievement there, given how short the lap was. The T0 Race Ascent drive was then followed up by Jared Calnins and Jonathan Bradford, who completed the top 10, and then it was Sim Racing Grid's Evan Clavio, best the rest in 11th place there, ahead of Jeremy Barber, with Corey Lobner, Kurt Smith, and Mitchell Richmeyer there, all enjoying relatively fun races and ran off that top 15, albeit the Monster Energy Racing drive ended up in a bit of difficulty late on. And then we did have Joseph Heath in 16th, ahead of Kyle Flannery, with 2 laps down to Andy Kosick, Zach Saunders, and Jason Lynn, who completed your top 20 for Gator Racing, and then it will be outside the top 20. In 21st was Zach Hudarko, who unfortunately could not follow up his win last time out in race number 2 in Texas. Will win today nor a podium, and he did head to settle for quite a dismal day, but he was ahead of Thomas Vancock. And then we did see Kevin Johnson there on his debut, unfortunately having to retire with 4 laps to go due to an incident on the bus stop chicane. He was ahead of Sean Good, who ended up almost going backwards into the pit lane. We didn't quite see how, but the Gasparilla Motorsport driver in the end not having a happy day at the office, neither did Jalen Kuo. And then we did see Carl Murray, Gareth McAllister, Fred Alrici, Spencer Clark, and Adrian Fedorowski complete your Delta Top 30, and all of them, unfortunately, retirees from the race. Well, that concludes our rundown of results, provisional to any subject to Eddie Stewart's inquiries there, ladies and gentlemen. Goodness me, getting ahead of my words. It has been such an exciting race today. You have to forgive me, but unfortunately, it does mean all the races come to a close here at Watkins Glen, and well, we do have to put the birthday decorations away, because that was your 5th year anniversary race. It is done and dusted, and it is time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat here right now wanting to know more about the Alpha Touring Challenge and how you can perhaps get on the grid for the remainder of the season or for a future season, because we are always open to new entrants, whether you're an esports professional all the way through to a novice. Indeed, many of the Deltas you see here today are novices all the way through to some esports professionals in the alpha classes. Well, for that and plenty more, all you need to do is go to our official website, and that is, of course, at alphatouringchallenge.com. And if you do, there is the website on screen. It is the master encyclopedia of all things ATC. Whether you want news articles, alternatively the latest points, the history of the series, what happened 4 seasons ago, who's got the most wins, we have got it all here on the website. You could not find a better source of information. Indeed, Wikipedia would be jealous when they see this website. And I'll tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen, it's your number one source source to go to. And here as well, you can find the sign-up sheet to get yourself as part of the official Discord community for the Alpha Touring Challenge and get to the beating heart of where all the racing happens. We'd also like to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series partners, as always, and they do include, firstly, none other than Syncmesh. And, well, born out of the pursuit of one-man's search for better gear for sim racing, Syncmesh is the company which provides purpose-built gear for sim racing, ranging from gloves through to full line of performance wear. With an obsessive attention to detail in their gear, which aligns with your attention to detail in nailing lap after lap of the simulator, you could not ask for better gear to make your racing experience better. So if you'd like to know more, do head to their website, that is sync-mesh.com today. We'd also like to say a big thank you to our other series partner, and that is Glass and Steel Photography and Design. Now, the Alpha Touring Challenge's official photographer, you see them on the circuit today, Jason Lynn, is a highly talented and approachable individual who provides both photography and livery design services for the iRacing simulator platform. This is all part of Glass and Steel Photography and Design. But do not just take our word for it here at the ATC. With 5 stars reviews from his clientele, citing him as easy to work with, detail-orientated, and a very fast responder, if you are looking for pixel-precise photography or a livery design that is going to dominate the competition, then why not head to his website at glassnsteel1.wordpress.com today. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we turn our attentions now to next time out. And in round number 6, we make our way to Ontario in Canada for the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, but you'll none love it and normally refer to it as Motorsport. And now it's going to be back to 2 25-minute sprint races, and at a circuit that arguably is one of our high-speed circuits on the calendar. If Watkins Glen wasn't fast enough, this is going to be even quicker. Who, through its incredibly aggressive sweeping bends, will be able to come out top trumps? Over on the championship, it does seem as though Michael Polasek is now reaffirming his status as the championship leader, and our defending champion is trying to break away from the likes of Logan McKenzie and also Wojciech Swierdajc. In the Gamma class, meanwhile, well, today has definitely served to shake things up a considerable degree, but the Beaver and D's pair of Raymond Tew and John Lauzon will always be firmly at the front, it would seem. And as for the Delta class standings, well, with Tyler Long missing this round and the drop scores coming into effect, we may just have a new championship leader next time out, but will we see Long back of the grid, and will we see him go for gold to try and reassert his dominance? Well, for all that and more, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have to tune in next time, because the race will be on Monday the 9th of February 2026, but we'll be covering this if it were live on Tuesday the 10th of February, and you won't want to miss a second of it. But until then, we've been the Alpha Touring Challenge. I've been your host and commentator, Paul Walsh, and you've been tuning into a Paul Walsh production. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, remember, as always, to stay on track. Good night.